Hi everybody, this is Courtney Fiberfox Studios and we are continuing on in this video with the Claira Belle top, and we will be creating the other side. Right now what you're looking at, and I know my camera is very close so you can't completely see, but you should be coming back and meeting up with me when you have your first arm and chest panel done. So that is going to be like a long wide rectangle that you've created that you're going to be now crocheting for the other side to make a mirror image of it for the back side of the top. And really, since this is a mirror image, the front and back of the top are exactly the same. There's really not a defined front or back side, but for tutorial purposes, I'm saying we're about to make the back of the top. So you've been crocheting in this direction. Your foundation ovals are down here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn those back up here to the top. The very first step that we have to do is we have to go ahead and add in a section of foundation ovals in the center so that we can crochet along but leave an opening for our neck. I like to call it the head hole, but it's a neckline. We're making a neckline right now. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to raise my camera up so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so here we are. We're going to go ahead and define where we're going to be leaving our opening for the neckline. And we're going to do that first by folding the piece in half, or you can count your ovals. I, on this piece, have a total of 15 foundation ovals. So when I fold it in half, meeting my left side and my right side together, and fold it just like that, we have an equal number of ovals all the way up here to the center. All of you guys are going to find that you have a center foundation oval that's dead center because this is done with an odd number of foundation ovals. You do multiples of 2 plus 1 at the end. So in the center right here, I have one foundation oval, and you can tell by when you turn it this way, you can match up and count your ovals. There's 2 because I have it folded over. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and then here's my number 15. So in my case, and for many of you, you're going to be leaving a number of either 5 or 7 foundation ovals in the center is what we're going to mark. That's where we're going to be leaving the opening for our neckline. So on this particular piece, I'm going to be doing 5 because this is a mini piece. So right here is my center. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 more foundation ovals plus the center one is a total of 5. So when I grab right here and here, just past those ovals, that's where I'm going to be marking. So there's 5 here in the center. So we're going to grab a stitch marker at this point, and you can use any stitch marker at all. The main thing is just to mark so we know exactly where we're going to place our new foundation ovals. And you're just going to go right around the space in between the 2 existing ovals. And you're going to do the same thing over on the other side. So for me to check my count, I'm going to count over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to be marking right here on this side. And you can use any stitch marker at all. It doesn't matter. Main thing is we're just going to mark it out so that we can join on our yarn and create foundation ovals so that we can crochet one long panel all the way on this particular piece. So I'm going to use a different color yarn so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing, but you, of course, are going to use your same existing yarn that you've been using. You're going to create a slip knot to get that yarn ready. Now, you can check your count, and this is really important, especially in the plus sizes, where you have a longer foundation oval that started your project. You just want to make sure that you're even. You have the same number of foundation ovals from the point of the stitch marker on this side to the edge of your project over here. And the same thing on the opposite side. The reason being is this is your going to be your shoulder and sleeve section. So I'm going to count over and make sure that I have the same number on this side, and then I'll check the other side. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now I'm going to slide over, and where I've marked here in between the 2 existing foundation ovals, I'm going to count from this point over. So I should have 5. I had 5 on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So I'm even. Your count is going to vary depending on what size you made. The whole point is just make sure that you have the same number on this side as you do on this side. And that's another way of checking to make sure that you're placing these stitch markers in the dead center of the project. So this is where your head is going to come through. So I'm going to go ahead and take that slip knot that I made, and I'm going to grab my same hook that I've been using, and I'm going to come over here to where I place the stitch marker. I'm going to bring that up so you guys can see I'm right there in between two existing foundation ovals, and I am going to slide my hook just under that. Then I'm going to grab that slip knot and put it on my hook and draw it up like a loop. Now I'm going to grab my tail and my working yarn and chain 1. And then I can go ahead and let that tail fall onto the back. So now from here, I'm just going to be chaining and creating foundation ovals again. And I'm going to create the same number of foundation ovals that I skipped. So in my case, in this example, I need 5 foundation ovals to join up over here at this other stitch marker. You are going to do whatever you skipped. That's the number of foundation ovals you need to create for your project. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and get started. I've lowered the camera down so you can see what I'm doing. We want to make sure that you're leaving a long enough tail so that you can bind this off. I like to do a knot. I will show that, but you want to make sure you've got enough so that you can bind this off, because this is your neck opening. So this part of your top is going to get a lot of movement when you're putting it on, taking it off. So we already chained 1 to kind of lock that in place. So we need to chain up 3 more times because we're doing our foundation oval again. So you're just going to grab your yarn and pull on through the loop. And that's 2. Here's number 3, and here's number 4. So now I'm going to wrap twice around my hook. And I'm going to go back down to that very first chain that I made, and I'm going to insert my hook, making sure I'm under the V. And I want to grab and pull up a loop, grab and pull through 2, grab and pull through 2, grab and pull through 2. And I do kind of recommend that you keep pretty loose tension on this. So I'm going to continue on chaining up 4. And then I will be wrapping my yarn and going back down into that first chain until I've created the number of foundation ovals I need to kind of bridge that gap that we created, so we have a neck opening for this, or your head hole, as I like to call it. So you can go ahead and pause here, create your foundation ovals, and meet up back with me when you're ready to join them on over here at this side. All right, so you're meeting back up with me and we're ready to join on. So we've got our foundation ovals created, the number that we needed to take up this space, because we're going to have to skip that back there. So we're going to go ahead and find your other stitch marker real quick. And I just leave them in. They don't really get in my way. I can take them out afterward. But we're just going to make sure that we're working in between those 2 existing foundation ovals. And you're going to take your hook. You're already attached. You got your ovals right here. And you're going to go ahead and slide under that little bar that's, the in-between space, in between our 2 foundation ovals, just like we joined on. We're going to slide underneath that. Sorry, lost my yarn. So we're going to slide underneath and we're going to grab and pull up a loop. And now we're going to grab and pull through those 2 loops. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, make sure when you're doing this join that you don't have your foundation oval, this chain of them, all twisted up. So just make sure that you have them nice and flat like you need them to be, and make sure that you're joining on so that when you work these ovals, they're not going to be twisted. So once you've joined on, you can go ahead and chain up 2 and get down into the camera. You can chain up 2, clip your yarn, and cinch that down, and that will tighten that down for you on this side. And then you can just sew in that tail. In my case, I'm not going to actually do the cinch down part because this is not the right color yarn for this project. But here's what you end up with. You end up with this chain of foundation ovals, and this makes your neck opening, head hole. So for me, this is a very small size, so I need it to be this size. Most of you are going to find that you're going to be doing 7 foundation ovals is what you're going to need. And you're going to join on. Now from here, you can just go over to the corner either right side or left side, and find that very first foundation oval. And you're going to join back on here and begin working row 1 just like you did before. And you're going to work all the way across, and you'll be working over here into these foundation ovals just like normal, and then finishing off over here on this side. So hopefully that's making sense. I'm not going to go over the whole process of the stitch again because we just covered that in the previous video, but you'll just go ahead and join on. I will show you how to do a quick little join on just in case anybody is needing to see that. So let me pause real quick and I will go ahead and bring my camera down just a little bit more. All right, so we're going to go ahead and join on. I'm picking the right side of the project. I'm going to come down here and find that existing foundation oval, and that's where we want to go. And in my case, I do want to make sure that I'm going into the very first stitch here on that foundation oval. So hopefully you guys can see that. I'm just right here on the opposite side. We've worked down here already. So I'm just going to come in and grab my slip knot and bring it onto my hook. And then I'm going to draw up that loop. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to go back down that same exact stitch. And I'm going to do my first single crochet right there. To start row 1, you're doing 2 single crochets. So my other single crochet will just be placed right there in that foundation oval that we're working on. And then from here, you're going to be chaining just like you were the last time around. Chain 4, you'll jump over here into the next foundation oval, and you'll start doing your 3 triple crochets, chain 3, 3 triple crochets, all into that same stitch. So it's the same work that you've already been doing on the other side. You are just simply working into the opposite side of the foundation ovals now. And the end result of that is you're going to end up with a mirror image of your other panel. So this is the top portion of your Claira Belle top, and you're going to do the exact same number of repeats on this side that you did on the completed side. So if you did 2 repeats, 3 repeats of the whole pattern, so that's, 6 rows per repeat, you're going to do that same exact amount on this side, and then you're going to meet back up with me when you're ready to join on for your body panels. So you're going to keep working just as you have been and finish out this part of the top, and then you will be coming back to me. We're going to go ahead and do body panels, and then you will be finishing up. And so we're going to be jumping right on for me into that because I have a piece ready to show you. But for you guys, you're going to go ahead and pause the video here, work out the same number of repeats on this side. So we're just doing a mirror image now, and you're going to work in those foundation ovals that you joined on just as if they were the original chain of foundation ovals. Nothing changes here. So you're just going to keep working. We'll meet back up shortly and add on those body panels. And then it'll be down to sewing up the sides, and you'll be finished with your project. All right, so you're going to be meeting back up with me now at this point, and you have your front and back sleeve, chest panels done, and sleeve and back panel done. It's just a long rectangle at this point. So how I determine the best place to place my body panels is by trying on this piece. So you're going to try it on, you're going to drape it over. It's just going to be covering over, obviously your arms. It is meant to have a wide arm opening because of the way this piece is designed as it's shown in the pictures. You're going to have a wide arm opening down here, and it's going to hit closer to your elbow if you have followed all my directions and counts. If you've done any adjustment, then it's going to change, obviously, by your adjustment. But down here on my, I'm on my left side. What I did was I just estimated where the best place for this body panel to start. And to do that, this is why you're going to want to try it on. First, you're going to mark it, though. So I've kind of pinned it closed along here. I've got some different stitch markers here that you can see just slightly. So you're going to use stitch markers to kind of mark there, but then we're going to find the spot where we want to do our body panel. And you're actually going to close that with a stitch marker, the 2 panels, and then you'll do the same thing in the same position on the other side. Then you'll try it on, and that will show you how it's going to come in on the side, just underneath the armpit area. So that's why you want to do that. It'll tell you whether you've got a comfortable fit or whether you need to scoot this stitch marker out some so that you can make a wider body panel. So in my case, I counted down here. I'm counting these little clusters here at the end of this row. So I counted over 1, 2, here's number 3, 4, and I ended up doing my body panel in between the 4th and 5th little cluster. So that is where I marked for my body panel to start. So you'd be joining on in that section. It's going to depend completely on you where this is going to land. Now, if you prefer for just the ease of the pattern, you can scoot it to right here and have just a slightly wider body panel. It won't hug as much to your body. And you can actually start where you would have your pattern, start where the clustering begins. Like I said, it's completely up to you. So you're going to go and you're going to mark that panel and you're going to close it off. You want to have a locking, like closing, safety pin style, locking stitch marker so that you can do this. And you're going to do it in the same exact spot over on the other side. And then you're going to want to try this on and make sure that's not going to be too tight and uncomfortable. So mark, in my case, I counted over 4 of these little clusters right here. You pick whatever you think is going to be the best for your body style and shape. And you will do the exact same placement over here on this side so that you can try it on. So I'm going to count over, for my case, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to mark right here in between the 4th and 5th cluster. So I'm going to grab another locking stitch marker. And I'm going to go ahead and mark there. And then we will try it on, make sure that we like that fit. If you don't, you can move the placement. So you're going to go ahead and pause here and try on. For you guys, you're going to have that body panel started. You're going to try on your shoulders or your arm and chest panel in this manner with it clipped so you can see if you like that fit. All right, so I ended up liking that fit just fine. And now we're going to take a look at where I've marked. I've got the same marking in the same exact position over on the opposite side. I'm going to be working in between those 2 stitch markers. That's where I'm going to be adding my body panel. So this determines the width of the front or back body panel, just depending on how you're looking at this top. We'll call it the front for this case. So we're going to be working on the front body panel. Now, wherever you've put your stitch marker, you want to lay this out nice and flat on a work surface and take a look at it. You want to make sure that where you are starting your body panel makes sense for this design, for this pattern. So in my case, I've actually marked, I'm on one of the chain 9s that has the 3 single crochets. When you end your project, that's why it's really important that you do that 6th row that I showed you in the tutorial as your last row, because it gives you a nice straight edge and it also sets you up perfectly for doing your body panel. So in my case, for me, where I've marked lands right perfectly for one of the patterns to start. So I've marked in the center. All right, so we've got our spot marked on each side of our panel, and you can go ahead and do this on the other side of the panel that's going to be on your back and mark it in the exact same spot so that once you create this first panel for the body, you can go ahead and jump over to the second side and do the other body panel, and then we'll just be joining those on the side. And that'll be in a separate video. I'll do a separate tutorial for how you join these when I've finished out my project and show you what you do exactly. So over here, where we have marked right in the center. So like I was saying, you want to make sure that wherever you're marking makes sense for starting your pattern. You're just going to be starting wherever you are. You're going to be starting doing the pattern over again in that area. So we are going to be starting on what is row 4 in our repeat of this pattern. So out of the 6 rows that we do to create the pattern, this is going to start us on row 4 in this case. When you take a look at where we ended and the clusters and everything, if you follow what you did on row 4, you will be able to finish up perfectly. So we're going to go ahead and insert right there into the center single crochet in my case, because I've marked where the 3 single crochets are. So I'm going to go ahead and grab up my loop and draw it up. And I'm going to grab both the tail and working yarn and chain 1. Now I can let that tail fall, leave a long enough one so that you can sew it in later. Now I'm going to go back down that same single crochet and pull up a loop. I'm going to grab and pull through 2 to finish out my first single crochet. So now I'm going to go right here in the very next one and do a single crochet, because remember, this is row 4 that we're on in this scenario. So now I'm going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to be jumping over here, and we've done a cluster down here, the 6 clusters. We've done those on this previous row. So we're going to find that little perfect stitch that we made when we clustered. We're going to go into that, and in this case, I'm going to be doing 3 triple crochets, chain 3, 3 triple crochets. So you're just going to keep working in the same way that you have been, doing this all the way down, meeting up to your next stitch marker. And then from there, you'll be beginning and ending your rows just like you have been. Nothing changes. We're just crocheting now a shorter panel because this is going to form our body. So there's my 3 single crochets. Now I wrap twice. I go back down in that same exact stitch and go ahead and do 3 more triple crochets down there into that stitch. And I'm doing it in this different color yarn so you guys can see where I'm working and kind of get the idea of where you're going with this. And so I'm going to be chaining 4 again, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now this time I'm going to be able to work into the top of each of these single crochets. So there's 3 single crochets. So I'm going to work a single crochet into each and every single crochet. There's 1, here's number 2, and here's number 3. And then I will just start my repeat again, chaining 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, jumping over to this cluster and doing my 3 triple crochets, chain 3, 3 triple crochets, all into that same exact space. And we're just going into that little space that we created when we clustered. So from here, you can go ahead and finish out your body panel. Down below, I have put the suggested number of repeats of the pattern for the body panel sections, but you of course can do whatever number you prefer. Your height and all will determine how long or short you want to make these body panels. And just make sure, just like we did when we created the top portion, where it's our arms and chest and arms and back, the front and back body panel need to be a mirror image of each other. So when you're done with this, you're not going to be able to tell which side is the front and which side is the back. So you can go ahead and continue working here and finish out your body panel, and then create your second body panel over on the other side, which I will show you what that looks like completed in just one moment. And then we'll be meeting back up in the last video to go ahead and sew up our sides and finish out. So we will see you guys one more time in one more video, but hopefully this has been really helpful to you. You understand how to make this top. If you have any questions, you can always leave me a comment below. And I'm going to show you what your completed panel is going to look like right now. All right, so here what I'm showing is if the perfect position for you is to actually start your body panel right here at the cluster, if that's just what works best for you, because there is, you know, a good 2.5 to 3 inch difference depending on the size of yarn that you've used between the 3 single crochets and the next set of 3 single crochets. So, you know, that can vastly change the fit of your finished piece. So for those of you who may need to work here in the cluster, I wanted to show you real quick what that will look like. So you were just creating half of that cluster pattern and then moving on as normal. So how I began to move up here in this particular space is I did a chain of 9. So I did the chain 9, and then I was able to do the 3 double crochets right there into that perfect little space that's created from the clustering. And then I moved on completely as normal as the pattern would say, chaining, and did the chain 4, the 3 single crochets, chain 4, And then over here, we start doing the rest of that 3 triple crochets, 3 chains, 3 triple crochets, all into that space where we clustered. So the rest of the pattern works exactly as normal. And then as you are moving on up row after row, you're just going to be maintaining your straight edge. And so here on this very next row, this would be the second row of the body panel, I did a chain 5 space to start out, because when I come back and work back over, I can just simply start putting 1 post right here along the side, and that will keep a nice straight edge. So in this case, I'd be going into the 3 chains. I'd go 1, 2, 3. I'd go into the top of the 3rd chain, and I would place my stitch when I work back in this direction. Let me pull this down so y'all can see. So when I'm coming back this way, working towards this edge, I'm just going to start placing either a triple crochet or a double treble, whichever you need to do, doing chain 4s and chain 5s on down this space. And then as needed, as the pattern calls for it, you can always add in a chain 9. When you're going to do the chain 9 here at the end, or to begin, your next row, you will do that on any row where your stitches need to be swooping inward. When they're working back out in this direction, you would go with like the chain 5 or chain 4, depending on which row you're on. So it's the same beginning and ends. You're just doing them different because you're only completing a half pattern. And normally you'd be ending where, like in this case, you'd be ending over here where you've just started your pattern, and you do a triple crochet right here, and then you chain up 5 to begin this next row. So you're just converting that into this section over here where you're working half of this cluster on over. So hopefully that makes sense and answers any questions you might have if that is where you're going to need to start. If that does not answer your question, I can do a very short swatch showing you how you begin and end, but it's really exactly what you have been doing. You're starting in a different position in this case. And if you look at your work so far, there have been plenty of times throughout where you were working on that half cluster right here, for example. So this has come up before. You're just going to be doing it for the body panel. So again, it's just doing exactly what you've been doing in a shorter row so that you can create your body panel. So we will be coming back next. I'm going to be able to fit into this video the sewing up of the sides, so I'll show you guys that real quick in just a moment. So right here is what you're going to end up having when you've completed your body panel. This is a full body panel. We'll call this my front body panel. So I've got this piece joined on already to my existing top, and the top part, the arm and chest, and you're going to have your number of repeats completed. And then I'm going to flip my project over and do the exact same thing over here on the back side. So hopefully you guys are understanding what you need to do. I'm going to go ahead and get this straightened out so you can see. So you're going to complete one, and then you'll be flipping over to the other side. That's why it's a good idea to go ahead and mark it out in advance so that you know exactly where you need to start. And you'll go ahead and begin working in the same exact way over here on the other side. And then that means we're going to have to come back and do our joining. I'll show you how I joined mine together when I finished it up, and we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so you are meeting back up with me now. At this point, you have a top that is completely finished as far as the crochet work, and you just need to go ahead and do your joining on the side. So what you're going to do in this case is, very first thing is you want to go ahead and grab out some stitch markers and line up your project. You want to line up your sleeves over here by the edge. You want to make sure that you meet up your edges. And since I'm not going to be trying it on at this stage, I don't worry about making those markers tight. It's more to keep the alignment of the piece so that we can start crocheting. So you're going to start up here at your top bottom edge of your sleeves, and you're going to place a stitch marker there in the corner stitch on both sides so that it holds that together. And then just as far apart as you would like, you can go through matching up, and you will see that your pattern is going to match up because we have a mirror image. So you're just going to make sure everything's lining up, place another stitch marker to hold that spot, and continue on down until you have marked it in enough places that you're not going to have your top kind of slip around on you as you begin to join it. You're going to go and work on down the side doing the same exact thing. You're going to be lining up the pattern. You'll see that it's going to match up, and you're going to place a stitch marker. I do recommend that if you've done your side, your panels, your body panels, the same length, and most of you would have done this, that's how I recommend doing it, is doing them the same length. Even if you are not going to be doing a slit on the side, you still want to line up your bottom edges. You want to find your corner stitch here at the bottom, and you want to make sure that you place a stitch marker down here where it is appropriate so that you do not have this kind of creep up on you as you were adding stitch markers along the sides. So I always do my mark down here in the bottom edge. So this is the bottom of my top, and I make sure I get into the front and back panel and mark it there so that it doesn't slide. And then I'll go ahead and place the rest of my stitch markers on along this edge here, and then I will do the same thing on the other side. Once you have marked it all, you can start either at the top corner of the sleeve, well, it's the bottom edge of the sleeve. You can start there, or you can always start in down here on the side. If you're leaving a slit, you'll start in the position where you want to leave your slit, and you'll go, you're joining from that point up. So it's really up to you on the slit. If you don't want one, you do not have to have one. Before you do a permanent join for all the way down to the edge, I would try it on once you've got it joined to a certain spot, especially on the plus sizes, and make sure that you do not need to leave a slit. I know some of us, if you're like me, you have a lot of junk in the trunk, and so you're gonna need a little extra wiggle room down here at the bottom, and that's what the slit's good for. So you'll just continue to place your stitch markers, and then you're gonna come back with a either your crochet hook that you've been using and do a slip stitch or single crochet join along the side, or you can grab your yarn needle and sew the side. On my top, I am going to be leaving a slit, and I've decided that I want it about 3 inches up. So for me, I'm going to measure my 3 inches up. That's where I'm going to place a stitch marker that I'm going to leave in place while I work the rest of the way up. I personally start, depending on how I'm feeling that day, I might start up here at the bottom edge of the sleeve and start joining, or I will start at the bottom where I'm going to leave my slit and join up and go all the way through to the sleeve. Then you flip over, do the same thing on the reverse side. So there are a lot of tutorials out there that go really in depth on the different ways that you can either sew up your sides or do a simple single crochet join. I typically do the single crochet or slip stitch. On this particular top, because I am running low on yarn, I'm going to be doing a yarn needle and doing a whip stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my yarn needle and get started. Alright, so I've went ahead and placed stitch markers on along the side and sleeve area on both sides, and now I'm just going to go ahead and get started with the joining that I'm going to do. So in this case, I'm going to be doing the yarn needle. So I go in right above my stitch marker that I placed for my slit, because I am going to be doing a slit. Now, you don't have to worry too much about having enough yarn, having a really long yarn tail to work with to sew it up. You can always bind it off and add more if you run out of yarn. I find that when I get a whole lot of yarn pulled up to do, my joining, I end up tangling myself quite a bit. So I am just going to work in this manner for as far as I can, then I will bind it off and add more yarn. So I'm just making sure that I'm grabbing a loop from each side and just doing a very simple stitch. So I'm coming out over here, and then I come back in on this side and slip it in and pull it on through. So I keep it really simple, and I do like to pretty much get into each stitch along the side seam. So it's up to you. You can skip a few. I've seen people do that and it works out just as well. I just want to have a really secure join on this so I can wear it and wear it without it stretching apart at the seam and looking gappy. So I personally recommend that you go in pretty much every stitch along the side. So you're going to keep working in that same way, and you're going to finish up at the bottom edge of your sleeve, and then you will clip that yarn, bind it off, leave a long enough tail so that you can sew that in, or do the bind off that I like to do by doing the chain 2, working it in a little, and then chaining 2 again. So it's really up to you. There's really not a wrong way to join anything, as long as the end result is you have a nice clean seam and can wear the garment, you're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. Thank you as always so much for watching. Please make sure you hit the like button on this video. That helps me out tremendously and gets my videos higher up in the recommendations that YouTube puts out. So the more you give me the thumbs up, the better off I do here on YouTube, and the more people will see my videos. So until next time, hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Leave me any questions that you might have down below in the comments, and I'll be happy to get back to you and help you in any way that I can. Bye for now.